The rain didn't come soft that night. It came hard, like bullets against old glass, violent enough to shake the window panes of the apartment where Alara Rossi lived with her son. She stood frozen in her kitchen, one hand gripping the counter, the other pressed against her chest, as if holding her heart inside her body. The door hadn't made a sound when it opened. No creak, no warning, but she felt it, the way prey feels the predator before it sees teeth. He stood in the doorway, Cesare Moretti, the man she'd loved, the man she'd buried in her mind 6 years ago. The ghost made flesh. His suit was black, cut sharp enough to kill. Rain dripped from his hair, streaking down a face that had aged like stone, harder, colder, carved by violence and grief. But his eyes, God, his eyes hadn't changed. They still held that terrible mix of fury and heartbreak, the kind that drowns men who stare too long into their own reflection. He didn't move, didn't speak. He just looked at her, and in that look was everything. Every lie she'd told, every night she'd run, every prayer she'd whispered that he'd never find them. But then his gaze shifted, past her shoulder, to the small boy standing in the hallway, clutching a toy car, his dark curls wild from sleep. Luca, their son, the child Cesare never knew existed. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full, bursting with 6 years of secrets, with betrayal and survival, and the kind of love that breaks bones when it finally surfaces. Cesari's jaw tightened. His hands, scarred and deadly, trembled at his sides. And then he spoke. 2 words, soft as a dying breath, sharp as a blade between ribs. Don't talk. Not a command, a surrender. Alara's knees nearly buckled. Her son's eyes went wide, innocent and confused, staring at the stranger who looked at him like he was staring at salvation and damnation all at once. The rain hammered harder. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell tolled midnight. And Alara realized, with a terror that tasted like copper on her tongue, that the life she'd built on lies was over. He'd found them, and nothing would ever be the same. If that silence just grabbed you by the throat and wouldn't let go, then you need to stay. Because what comes next will shatter you in ways you won't see coming. Hit that subscribe button right now, because this story doesn't forgive and it doesn't forget. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. Now here's the question that'll haunt you tonight. If the man you loved, the one you ran from, the one you thought was dead, showed up at your door and saw the child you hid from him, would you beg for forgiveness, or would you run again? Drop your answer in the comments, because I promise you, Alara's about to make a choice that'll break your heart. Her heartbeat drowned out everything else. The rain, the silence, even her own breath. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Only one thought, sharp and cold as winter. He knows. 6 months before that door opened, Alara lived like a woman who'd already died once and was terrified of dying twice. Florence became her coffin. Beautiful, old, full of tourists who never looked at her long enough to remember her face. That's exactly how she wanted it. She worked in a cramped gallery, restoring paintings nobody cared about. Saints with fading halos, landscapes where the colors had surrendered to time. Her hands never stopped shaking when police sirens screamed past the narrow streets below. Every blue light was a countdown. Every footstep behind her was a threat. Luca was 6 then. Dark curls, eyes too smart for a child. He asked questions she couldn't answer. Mama, why don't we have pictures of Papa? She'd smile, kiss his forehead, and lie through her teeth. He lived far away, baby. Very far. Far enough that truth couldn't touch them. Far enough that her son would never know his father built an empire on blood. Their apartment sat above the gallery, 3 rooms that smelled like oil paint and fear. She taught Luca to count in Italian and English. She read him stories about knights and dragons, never mentioning that monsters weren't always make-believe. Her friends, the few she allowed close, knew nothing. Not her real name. Not where she came from. Not the man whose ghost she saw every time she closed her eyes. But hiding only works until someone starts looking. It happened on a Tuesday. The market was crowded, full of voices haggling over tomatoes and cheese. Alara held Luca's hand tight, her eyes scanning faces the way prey scans predators. And then she felt it, that weight of being watched. She turned. A man stood across the square. Tall, black coat, sunglasses, even though the day was gray. He wasn't shopping. He was staring. At her. At Luca. Her blood turned to ice. She grabbed her son and walked fast, her heart slamming against her ribs. She didn't look back. Didn't breathe until they were home. The door locked, the curtains drawn. That night, her phone rang. Unknown number. Her hand shook as she answered. A male voice. Calm. Almost polite. Someone's been asking questions about you, Mississippi. The line went dead. And Alara knew. Her borrowed time had just run out. Would you stay and face what's coming? Or would you grab your child and vanish into the night? Comment below, because Alara's about to realize that running only works until the past decides to chase you down. Cesare didn't sleep that first night in Florence. He sat in the shadows across from Alara's building, watching the windows, counting the hours until dawn. His men wanted to move in, to secure the perimeter, to do what they always did, control the situation with force. But he raised one hand, and they went silent. Because this wasn't about power anymore. This was about truth. For 6 years, he believed she was dead. Murdered. A message from his enemies, carved into his soul to teach him that love made men weak. His father's men told him she'd been found in the canals of Venice, her body too damaged to identify, but confirmed through her papers. He'd held a funeral with an empty casket. He'd burned down 3 rival families in her name. He'd become the ghost of Naples, ruling from shadows, feeling nothing, wanting nothing except the slow, cold satisfaction of revenge. But it was all a lie. His cousin Raffaello had orchestrated everything, forged the death certificate, paid off the corner, hid Alara away, not out of mercy, but to break Cesare completely, to make him into something that could be controlled, a weapon without a heart. And it worked. For 6 years, Cesare became exactly what Raffaello wanted, a man who ruled with ice in his veins and murder in his hands. Until 3 weeks ago, when a low-level informant mentioned a woman in Florence, an art restorer who never used credit cards, who paid cash for everything, who had a son with dark curls and eyes that looked too familiar. Cesare didn't believe it. Not at first, but he pulled the thread, and the entire tapestry unraveled. Raffaello's hidden accounts, the bribes, the timeline that proved Alara had been alive all along, raising their child while Cesare drowned in grief and rage. He sat there in the darkness, his jaw tight, his hands aching to break something. Raffaello hadn't just stolen his throne. He'd stolen his peace, his future, his son's first words, first steps, first everything. And now, Cesare had a choice. Burn the world down like he always did, or build something different from the ashes. His voice came out quiet, almost a prayer. Raffaello took more than my throne. He took my peace. But he was done letting dead men control his life. Alara woke the next morning to find her street empty. Too empty. No strangers lingering. No cars parked where they shouldn't be. Just silence. The dangerous kind. The kind that meant someone powerful was watching. Cesare didn't knock. He texted. One word. Cafe. She almost didn't go. Almost grabbed Luca and ran again, the way she'd been running for 6 years. But something stopped her. Maybe exhaustion. Maybe curiosity. Maybe the part of her that never stopped loving him, even when love felt like swallowing glass. She met him at a corner cafe where old men played chess and nobody asked questions. He sat with his back to the wall, a habit from years of survival. When she slid into the chair across from him, he didn't smile. Didn't try to charm her the way he used to. He just looked tired. Human. I've been removing threats, he said quietly. Around your building. Around Luca's school. You won't see them, but they're gone. Her jaw tightened. I didn't ask for your protection. I know. His eyes met hers, and there was something raw in them, something that looked like regret. But I'm giving it anyway. Why? Her voice cracked despite herself. So you can own us? So you can drag us into your world of blood and deals and bodies that wash up in rivers. He flinched. Actually flinched. Like her words were bullets. I'm trying to change, he said. I'm trying to be a good man. She laughed, bitter and sharp. You can't build a kingdom on corpses and then pretend you're something else. You can't protect us by making us prisoners. Then what do you want me to do? His voice rose, just barely, enough to make the old men glance over. Disappear? Pretend I never found you? Pretend I don't have a son? Yes. The word came out like a knife. Because that's what's best for him. Not your money. Not your power. Just absence. He stared at her for a long time. Then he stood, dropped cash on the table, and walked to the door. But before he left, he turned back, his voice so quiet she almost didn't hear it. You can't protect us by owning us. He nodded slowly, pain written across every line of his face. Then I'll protect you by letting go. Can love survive when the only way to save someone is to walk away? Drop your answer below, because what Cesare does next will rewrite everything you thought you knew about power and sacrifice. Cesare didn't use guns this time, didn't send men en masse to break down doors or leave bodies floating in the bay. That was the old way, the loud way, the way that made you feel powerful while the world burned around you. Real justice, he learned, didn't shout. It erased. He started with Raffaello's money. Offshore accounts in the Caymans, Switzerland, Monaco, places where men like his cousin hid their sins in spreadsheets and shell companies. Cesare had spent years building connections, learning who owed favors, who feared him more than they feared God. He called them in, one by one. Account numbers disappeared. Passwords changed. Digital fortunes evaporated like morning fog. Raffaello woke up broke, and he didn't even know it yet. Next came the evidence. Raffaello ran his empire on secrets, bribes to police captains, blackmail on politicians, photos of judges doing things they'd kill to keep hidden. Cesare had copies of everything. He didn't release them himself. Too obvious. Instead, he leaked them through journalists, activists, people who'd been waiting years for proof that monsters wore expensive suits. The files went public on a Tuesday. By Wednesday, warrants were issued. By Friday, Raffaello's name was toxic. But Cesare wasn't done. The orphanages Raffaello had exploited, places where he'd trafficked children, stolen futures, traded innocence for cash, started receiving anonymous donations. Enough money to rebuild, to hire real staff, to give those kids the lives they deserved. The old storyteller in me wants to say it was poetic. It was better than that. It was just. Within 2 weeks, Raffaello's mansion stood empty. His men scattered like roaches when the lights came on. His empire crumbled not with explosions, but with silence. The kind of silence that said, "You never mattered at all." And on his gate, left there by hands no one saw, was a single white rose, dripping red in the rain. Cesare stood across the street, watching, his expression unreadable. Then he turned and walked away, disappearing into the Florence morning like smoke. Real justice doesn't need an audience. It just needs to be done. The envelope arrived 3 days later. Thick, expensive paper, sealed with red wax, old-fashioned, the kind of detail Cesare always cared about even when the world was ending. Alara held it in her hands, afraid to open it. Luca was at school. The apartment was quiet except for her breathing and the distant hum of the city below. She broke the seal. Inside were documents. New passports, Italian and French. New names, bank accounts in cities she'd never been to, with enough money to disappear forever, to give Luca everything, to never look over her shoulder again. And a letter, handwritten. His script was still beautiful, even after everything. Alara, I've spent 6 years being a ghost. It's time I became one for real. By the time you read this, Cesare Moretti will be dead. Not actually, don't worry, I'm not that dramatic, but legally, officially, completely. The man you knew, the man I became, he's gone. No one will come looking for you. No one will ask questions. You're free. Luca is free. I thought about staying. God, I thought about it. But you were right. I can't protect you by owning you. And I can't be a father if being a father means teaching my son that power matters more than peace. So I'm giving you what I should have given you 6 years ago. A choice. A life. A future without me in it. For once, silence meant mercy. See, her hand shook so badly she nearly dropped the paper. Tears came hard, ugly, the kind that hurt your chest and steal your breath. She hated him, loved him, hated that she loved him, hated that even now, even after everything, he could break her heart by doing the right thing. A soft knock at the door. She wiped her eyes, opened it. A deliver man, young kid, probably college-aged, holding a small box wrapped in brown paper. "For Luca Rossi," he said, handing it over. She signed, closed the door, unwrapped it with trembling fingers. Inside was a pocket watch. Gold. Old. The kind passed down through generations. She opened it, still ticking, and engraved on the inside, "Time doesn't forget. Neither will I." Alara pressed it to her chest and cried until she couldn't anymore. "I'm an old man now, older than I have any right to be, considering the things I've seen. I sit by this window most days, watching rain tap against glass, listening to the world move on without me. People ask me sometimes why I tell this story. Why I remember a man like Cesare Moretti when the world's already forgotten him. Because someone should. I was his driver once. Long time ago, back when he was young and stupid and thought love could save him from what he was born into. I watched him fall for Alara. Watched him break when he thought she died. Watched him turn into something cold and sharp. Something that made even dangerous men nervous. But I also watched him do the hardest thing a man like that can do. I watched him walk away. He wasn't a saint. Saints don't build empires on broken bones and fear. Saints don't have blood on their hands that no amount of rain can wash away. But here's the thing about Cesare. He died trying to tear his empire down. Died trying to become something better, even if it meant erasing himself completely. Quiet justice isn't about vengeance. It's about knowing when to stop the fire before it burns everything you love. It's about understanding that sometimes the loudest revenge is walking away, letting people live without your shadow falling over them. Did he deserve forgiveness? I don't know. That's not for me to decide. But I know this. He gave them peace. Real peace. The kind you can't buy with power or fear or all the money in the world. I lean back in my chair, close my eyes, feel the weight of all these years pressing down. Outside, the rain keeps falling. It always does. And I whisper the truth one more time, just in case anyone's listening. For some men, mercy is the loudest revenge. If this story moved you, if it made you think about love and sacrifice and the price of redemption, then share it. Someone out there needs to hear that even the darkest hearts can find light if they're willing to let go of the darkness. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, because we've got more stories coming that'll break you open and put you back together. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Inspire others with what this story meant to you. And remember, the best endings aren't always happy. Sometimes they're just, right?